buon pomeriggio. Sono molto felice di darvi il benvenuto ancora una volta in questo incantevole spazio di Calle Morpurgo, messo a disposizione dal Comune di Udine, che ci avvolge sempre in una bella atmosfera di poesia e bellezza. Allora, il ciclo di quest'anno, organizzato e coordinato dall'Associazione Laureati in Lingue che presiedo, ma anche in collaborazione col Dipartimento DIL, si chiama Voci e Canti dall'Orlo del Mondo. Voices and Songs from the Edge of the World. Però prima di presentarvi anche i prossimi incontri, Lance Henson vuole usare della salvia sacra per benedire lo spazio. Quindi Lance, you can smudge.
I've recently come from my homeland, which is Oklahoma. It is not America. And I brought an herb that is used in our sacred Sundance, sage. I know you use sage to cook with here, and we use it to pray with in our ceremonies. So I will offer this in a round. When it's used for healing, when fire is mixed with this herb, the combustion and smoke becomes a part of the healing process that addresses the DNA of the person being healed. So I offer this as a blessing from my people to you. I was in Medellin, Colombia 5 years ago at the largest poetry festival in Latin America. And some very sacred people came down from the mountains to offer their blessing herb. But they brought a whole lot of it, and there was a big urn with a fire under it. And for 4 days and 4 nights, they offered their medicine to the crowd of sometimes 2,000 people. These ways that were given by herbs, by animals, is alive today in the indigenous world. And it is an honor for me as a Cheyenne person to offer this blessing herb to you today. So, thank you and good night.
Thank you, Lance. It's a great honor for us to have you here. After many years now, we were thinking about how many, but it's not so important. Allora, ripassiamo all'italiano. Lui leggerà in inglese da questo bellissimo libro che abbiamo appena, proprio fresco di stampa, Entities, Entità, con una bellissima copertina di un calcedonio azzurro che rende proprio l'idea di come dentro le cose ci siano delle entità. Allora, vi dicevo prima Voci e Canti dall'Orlo del Mondo, Voices and Songs from the Edge of the World. Words from the Edge è stata la prima pubblicazione che abbiamo fatto con forum di poesie di Lance Henson, di Apirana Taylor e di Memchubi, 3 poeti nativi, nel loro primo tour di Parole dall'Orlo del Mondo, da cui è anche nata la collana AL, perché il primo volume pubblicato nella collana AL che dirigo per la Forum, i tipi della Forum Editrice Universitaria, che è la nostra grande casa editrice dove con grande passione si costruiscono testi, anche di grande bellezza, sia dentro che fuori. E, diciamo, abbiamo dato l'avvio a questa collana dell'Associazione Laureati in Lingue che organizza questa serie di eventi con Udine Estate, con l'assessorato alla cultura, e quindi ringrazio moltissimo l'assessore Federico Pirone e tutto il suo gruppo, devo dire, che sempre con molta passione aiuta, contribuisce, sostiene, supporta quello che facciamo e non solo quello che facciamo noi, ma insomma a noi fa piacere, ne siamo molto grati ed onorati. Un grazie anche a Mattia Mantellato che vi saluta dalla Sicilia, che è vicepresidente di AL, Giada Ganis, la nostra grandiosa segretaria, Giovanna. Insomma, grazie ai volti amici e anche ai volti nuovi che vedo stasera, perché è sempre bello poter condividere la bellezza e la poesia. Questo progetto contribuisce a rendere attuali gli obiettivi statutari di AL. AL significa, oltre che all, tutti, tutto in inglese, e anche Associazione Laureati in Lingue, e che diciamo è il braccio di azione del Partnership Studies Group, che è un gruppo internazionale di ricerca che ha sede a Udine presso il DIL, il dipartimento dove lavoro, che ho anche diretto, che abbiamo fondato un po' di tempo fa. E Partnership Studies Group è un gruppo di ricerca internazionale e interdisciplinare che insieme ad AL intende valorizzare, portare sulla scena poesia, musica, danza, arte, cultura, anche delle minoranze cosiddette, regionali e non. Quindi il progetto fa dialogare in modo innovativo i diversi saperi letterari, poetici, culturali, antropologici, storici, con pratiche ed espressioni artistiche per un futuro di cura e di pace. Lance mi ha fatto una bella dedica qui proprio per grazia e pace, quindi come vedete siamo in sintonia. Il primo incontro di questo progetto c'è già stato, è stato il 7 il 5, scusatemi, di giugno con Irene Greco, Leggimi prima, che è stata un'iniziativa bellissima con i bambini e le bambine che hanno partecipato a questa lettura ravvicinata fra grandi e piccini. Il prossimo sarà il 20 giugno dalle 10 alle 13 a Casa della Contadinanza. Si intitola The Village Echoes, alla scoperta dei talenti, a cura del collettivo DMAV, dalla maschera al volto. Il 27 settembre ci sarà un concerto dal vivo della cantante e poetessa Sibel o Cristina Spadotto dal titolo Il canto della terra, e sarà nel parco di Palazzo Antonini, parco pubblico dei ragazzi del Brunetta, nella sede del nostro dipartimento. Poi il 10 ottobre ci sarà Manuel Martin a Palazzo Antonini, che ci parlerà dell'antica sapienza simbolica dei tarocchi. Il 25 ottobre, questo alle 14, invece il 25 ottobre dalle 17 alle 19 abbiamo appunto Mattia Mantellato con la sua Imagining Blue Embodied Seascapes, con appunto anche il musicista Filippo Franceschini e le artiste visive Tiziana e Isabella Pers. Oggi sono davvero felice di avere con noi l'amico e poeta Cheyenne, Henson, con questo volume di poesie, Entities, entità, che è a testo fronte, per cui se qualcuno ha qualche difficoltà, ma qua vedo colleghe, amiche angliste, quindi non penso, però le traduzioni a fronte a cura di Mauro Marra, Tsitsistas 2, Tsitsistas è il nome nativo dei Cheyenne, e abbiamo Tsitsistas 1 che è Lens, e Tsitsistas 2 che è Mauro, e poi il terzo Tsitsistas che oggi manca, che è Auro. Con loro ci conosciamo dal 98, quando subito dopo l'incidente del Cermis, appunto, Lens è stato invitato ad Aviano dall'associazione Hucahei per i diritti dei nativi nordamericani, coordinata appunto e diretta dai mitici Mauro Marra e Auro Basilicò. Quella strage, come troppe purtroppo, è rimasta senza colpevoli, oppure i colpevoli ci sono ma sono rimasti a piede libero, e questo accade perché le elite finanziarie guardano solo al proprio guadagno economico sulla pelle di milioni di persone, dalle multinazionali globaliste delle armi a quelle del farmaco, all'industria cosiddetta del green, che è solo greenwashing, strumentale rispetto all'uso indiscriminato delle risorse naturali per i propri enormi profitti, con costi terribili di violenza, di sfruttamento, di inquinamento, di distruzione per le popolazioni locali, indigene, native. Con Lens da subito abbiamo condiviso lo stesso sguardo critico sulle narrative di dominio, e quindi, come l'ho sentito parlare ad Aviano, ho detto no, deve venire a parlare con i miei studenti, e così è successo, e da allora abbiamo avuto il piacere e l'onore di condividere tante iniziative, imprese poetiche, dissidenti, piene di bellezza, di luce, come queste poesie che vi presentiamo 22 anni dopo il primo volume pubblicato appunto dalla collana AL. Anche in questo volume, appunto, come in Words from the Edge, parole dall'orlo del mondo, c'è un testo a fronte, e questo ci serve per mostrare come si dice in più lingue, Southern Cheyenne o Tsitsistas inglese, che per Lens è la lingua del nemico, italiano e a volte anche altre. Quindi questo è un evento che mette vicino e mette insieme Francesco Amerise, che è un polistrumentista molto aggraziato e potente, vedete, con la sua schiera di diversi tamburi di cui forse vi spiegherà un po'. Diciamo che i due non si conoscevano, e quindi, come sempre, we play by the ear, e andiamo a leggere e a suonare le poesie di Lance Henson insieme alla musica, al suono del tamburo, al ritmo di Francesco Amerise. Grazie e buon ascolto.
Rain. It rains inside the air that is folded toward it. It sounds, it's knowing, making the streets glisten, and the fields open their coats, and the birds listening for winter fly through it. It rains, deepening the leaves of autumn into their mirroring, soft singing. And what has fallen in the rain quiets the fields, lowering it prayer into the earth. May I read the English without translation? Nice, Waka, nice. There are angels among us. They don't admit it. They're the ones who move the heart and the mind to seek one meaning, which is life itself. I wrote a poem about some angels. They sit where horsemen have passed, moisture rising from the hoof prints. On a rainy mountain road near Grove, Oklahoma, rounding a curve, a sleeping black angel lifted its glistening wing as I passed. In a haunted mansion in France, I closed the bathroom mirror, the limp wings and vacant eyes behind me. These are the ones that watch us and will sit with us while only our shadows remain and our bones have melted away. This book I began during the pandemic, and it reminded me, the pandemic, of the huge losses that the world is consumed by even today. Our histories, all of us as human beings, suffer through today. War is dominating much of the news, the internal wars of politics, the ridiculous internal wars of separateness, and the wars that consume the innocent. When hunger and fear left them to search for other ones, they turned to one another, watching the dawn, lights shimmering still within them. Now the wind arrives, scented of snowfall. Evening opens its shadowed palm. Who will speak within the language of the other, while the folded birds in the burning forest sing? I'm going to keep this guy. Nevisto maayun ma. Nevisto maayun ma. Nevisto na maayun hista. Se hiskotio e visto ma. E maayun ahuta. Peyote song. I lost one of my wives to illness, and this poem is written after she appeared to me in a dream. And this is basically what she said to me. For Pat. Here, among the forgiven, my lover, immaculate in her invisibility, brought me to a still river, late afternoon, trees ascending into the water, where her green eyes opened for the last time forever, whispering, "This is where dreams bring their wounded. This is where dreams cross over. this is where dreams come to die. For how many is that reality alive in the memories of loss, in the memories of love? This book is titled Entities, and I wanted to address entities. They are around us. They surround our lives. The songs of birds, ancient songs, they sing for themselves and for us. Rain, the entity of rain itself embracing the earth. Without it, there is no life. Entities. Because you saw them, they are watching you. Where the river darkness folds toward the sea in its veined remembrances. Where the smoke from your fire rests in its coals embrewing around you. Your sleeping hand extended toward the shadows where one of them brushes in your palm. A breath. A blessing from a world born of pain and deep longing. Because you saw them, they are watching you. I'm an ex-Marine, and I hate war. I can't hate anything but war. I hate very few things. The war poems. A female rain enfolds its light among those who dreams of thirst. Here nothing cares of its color, its origin, of its pain, its rotted shawl of prayer. Among the burnt rags and broken bones turned to dust, a hand flung from the sky, closing to a fist. Cast your eyes here, returning from a great distance, where souls are drinking from the sacred stream of children's faces. Moth on the ledge of light. Moth on ledge of light, Higvigama looks at you. Nedonship veho. Moth on ledge of light. Moth looks at you. What are you doing, man, to the world? My wife is from Puglia. Consequently, we have another apartment in Puglia on the sea. And last summer, somebody called the park rangers and said, a badger has walked through my field of figs and is lying drunk on the side of the road. And the forest rangers went to gather this poor badger who was dead drunk on figs, and they convalesced it, and it became well. And this little village where the office of the park rangers are was surrounded by people supporting the life of this badger, and they let it go, and it waddled off into the fields. So that the village itself threw a party for that poor badger who got drunk on figs. It was 4 days from my birthday, and my wife said, "See what you badgers do?" My Cheyenne name is Mahako, badger. Angelus Novus. Paul Klee painted this during the Nazi era. And it's a painting of an angel that's come down to the earth to help. But almost immediately, this angel is surrounded by the debris of the world. Wars, fear, and then just debris, trash. And the angel's looking to the left in a very frightened stare, as if something is coming toward it. And it can't fly. So it stands there with its wings outstretched and captured. It is a long journey where life is not itself. It is the world's dream of us. The footprints that have led away are our own, leaving us. We watch them leaving in the silence that have taught us to be still while the wind howls around us. Life is not itself. We sit in its dampened memories, born so far from ourselves, looking back over our winged shoulders where the long journey began. Tasum is the middle word inside a Cheyenne word, himatasumeo. Himatasumeo is the energy of the world. It is visible in the wind that is not visible, but that wind is the cosmic breath of the universe. And without it, we could not breathe. So when we breathe, we're breathing in sacred information. And in ceremony, in the deep ceremonies of my people, that understanding is a learning experience, because some of the entities in that sacredness enter the soul, the tasum. Tasum drinks the knowledge and lives that knowledge in the world. Tasum. Let us celebrate not what is human within us, but the other. Sister bee folding its flowers away from us to live. Brother hawk watching us in its snowfall whitened feathers on our window ledge. Grandmother moon holding us within herself over the still river. Grandfather wind whispering to our dreams outside our locked and frightened windows. Let us celebrate not what is human within us, but the other. Poem for the beginning and the end. That sounds very drastic, doesn't it? Snow filling ravens' tracks near a fence row where the wind fell down. Dripping wax inside the rain. Something weeping inside this wall Silence and memory ache there. In a wintered wind, storm near the woodshed. Gray hair on a piece of wood where old ones passed. Ghosted dreams, laughing dreams, singing dreams fall out of our dream time to sit by us and watch us awaken. How am I doing? Okay? I'm like that old Navajo man who was standing at the gates of heaven. He was the shortest one in the bunch because the Navajo are short people. And when he got to the gate, he was asked, "And why are you standing there away from everybody else?" And he said, "Well, my wife told me to stand here. And so my wife told me just now to ask you how I was doing. So I asked you." I was in San Francisco some years ago, and I was writing about conflict between humans, conflict between animals, birds, and war. And the only thing that has stayed in this poem is the concept and the approach of war. Why is this word so common in the language we hear in the media? It's a question I ask myself often. Why? Where am I waiting for you? Streets soaked in voices, this coffee cup filled with rain. The Paris sky, gray-orange. I walked into whatever light there was, through small alleyways filled with forgotten names. In the Chimbu Highland at monsoon, with Papua New Guinea poets in a tin shack, we read poems after they shared their last bread with me, our words touching us quietly in the deepened jungle night. Soon after waking in Chiang Mai, I remember dreaming of a white field of skulls in Rwanda, the only darkness, the holes where their eyes were. This San Francisco morning, I remember the war that is here, and inside a gust of wind through the curtains, the great memory that waits, wanting to cross over from the other side. I was speaking to someone who said they preferred Greece to the place where they took their holiday. Somebody sitting out. Yanis Ritsos. When I was a university student back in the last century, as most of you have memories of, there was no Native American literature in my university library. So I wrote a book, published when I was a sophomore in college. And that book became the book that was in the library. My generation catapulted our culture into the American system with our poetry and stories. My generation. Why did it take so long? Because America is America, that's why. There were poets, indigenous poets, Native American poets writing in the 18th century, that their poetry was very derivative of the English forms of writing. My Generation was published by Harper and Row, who realized there was a burgeoning new literary canon being born in America. Most of us were still in university. The first modern anthology published by Harper and Row was published in 1971, and there were only 19 poets in it, in this anthology. These are the only poets the universities had attending at the time. There were other poets on reservations, not in school writing, and these voices would come later. But Harper and Row realized there could be money made from finding us, and they did. My first royalty check was $250. I only received 2 royalty checks. The second royalty check was for 15 cents. So we were taken advantage of, but we didn't care because we had a wide public in university reading our words. I'll read 2 or 3 more poems. I don't know if you know the name John Prine. Go to YouTube and type John Prine, you can find him. He was one of America's troubadours. He sang of America as he saw it, brutally and beautifully and honestly. His song, Sam Stone, describes, it's a classic, maybe the best song ever composed about Vietnam. You know that song? He talks about a veteran who comes home from Vietnam and who overdoses in his living room. Sam Stone. He also writes about the significance of work and working and the working class. Beautiful lyrics. John Prine, troubadour. Found 1,000 butterflies in the icicles, a single tear in the willowed rain. Found a veteran's broken whistle in the worn pocket of a sad refrain. Moved us beyond ourselves to a clearing place where moonlight in our souls remain. Prine, sing to us justice, sing to us peace, sing to us again. Poem for not turning away. You just had an election. Many people turned away. Happens all over the world. I think America is going to inherit Trump because people are turning away. Poem for not turning away. At the well of solitude, where the dead and the living link hands, we see when the clouds open and the sun is upon us, they are smiling, whispering of windows shuttered on an unknown plain. The ones with ghosted eyes stand within our dream time to watch, to remind. Their bones melt on our window panes. And the one song that has followed us all this way is playing. entities that reminds us, if we watch and listen closely enough, and challenges us. The snake, Min in Cheyenne, Min. We celebrate the life of Min because it's one of the entities that can transform itself out of its skin into another skin. Min. You cannot know me. What I know cannot be captured. What you think you know makes you tear the things you behave and believe in out of yourself. You cannot know me. What hangs inside the moving air? What moves among my lives that lives in your fear? An electric quivering that is yourself watching you. And all this that is you. You cannot change your skin as me. Min. Snake. The entities, the little entities, the flea, the sand flea, is a sacred entity to the Dene, the Navajo people of Arizona. Why? One of the reasons is when you have fleas, it reminds you to wash yourself. Simple, common sense. The Cheyenne word for spider in the modern time is viho. We had to create this word when we met these strangers who would become our enemy, who would rob us of our land. The viho is taken from the Cheyenne ancient word meaning black widow spider. The black widow spider is beautiful, territorial, and deadly. In the ancient way of looking at viho, the Cheyenne people have many stories of the spider. Its web, especially its web in the changing of the moons. To watch it is to almost watch a clock, to know if rain is coming by the way the dew settles on the beautiful, beautiful patterning of its web. So thinking of viho, I wrote this. Spider, feeling its skin, its many eyes watching, its web aflame in a field of broken symmetries. Trembling winter trees, here the promise is kept for us, dusk and death in Myanmar, Amazonia, Ukraine, Gaza. Smell the trickle of bones, a firestorm of hatred, the sieve of hope crushed under the boots of madmen. I will read two more poems. So alone, even their pain abandoned them. Knowing their pain was the pain of the world, they waited for its return. their light still tremoring within them, so alone. I was traveling with my 22-year-old daughter in Oklahoma. We went to Utah, where Kevin Costner was filming his failed movie. I have a minor in film as literature, and I've been following the career of Kevin Costner. He's become an ego-driven maniac. I'll be quiet. There are a lot of Native American films, by the way, that will never make mainstream film because they don't have distributors. There are many Native American films, so many. There's a Native American Film Festival once or twice a year in America. And I think on YouTube you can find some of them. They're simple films, they're complex films, they're angry films, they're full of joy films. And if you have Hulu, you can watch Reservation Dogs. It's about teenagers in eastern Oklahoma. And it won a Grammy, an Emmy rather. It's up for another Emmy this season. On Hulu though, you can't find it anywhere else. Reservation Dogs. Anyway, in Oklahoma City, they're proud of their cowboys. An era that only lasted 40 years, but they're very proud of their cowboys. So much so, they built a Cowboy Hall of Fame. And each year, they commemorate many prizes and gifts to people, Western writers, Native writers. However, James Earl Fraser, an American sculptor, made a sculpture of a very tired horse, so tired its head's almost on the ground, its knees are bent. And astride this horse is the most defeated Indian I've ever seen in my life. He's slumped over, he's about to drop his weapons, and he's like the horse. They're both just inebriated with sorrow and loss. That's the sculpture that you see huge as this when you walk into the Cowboy Hall of Fame. Now, what does an 8-year-old kid see in his imagery or her imagery when they walk in there and see that poor Indian defeated? That's not the image we want portrayed, but it's there. So my daughter and I check into a motel in Oklahoma City for 3 days, and above the television, a big painting of James Earl Fraser's defeated Indian. I covered it with a towel. I didn't want to see it. Anyway, Zoe and I drove America. Here, on the motel wall in Oklahoma City, I have awakened again to the statue at the entrance of the Oklahoma Cowboy Hall of Fame, created by a white man. My people call these men Viho. I drive my daughter down the Cheyenne roads, past 12 Mile Point, where I was raised. We gather sage and cedar. Near Swapping Back Mission, we follow an oil truck toward Watanga, an Indian name for a town where the Indians are all ghetto. We rest in the shade of a tree at Romano's State Park. 5 hours later, at a Texas rest stop, we witness the panorama of the Lamano Staccato Plains. I light a cigar, pushing the smoke across the landscape. A scorpion nestles in the shadow of my boot. In Tucumcari, New Mexico, we spend the night hours sitting outside, drinking an Australian wine under a canopy of desert stars. A nighthawk whistles at a small creek behind me. In this medicined wind, the dog soldier rhythms of a life lived fall upon us now as we grow silent in the moon's blessing mist. Two more poems. In this book, there's a painting. In this book, there's a painting by Olga Hiva. She's a Russian painter. This painting is actually as big as that wall right there. They're huge paintings. And only recently, though she's been painting for 30 years, her work is being recognized. 2 shows in New York this year. And I wanted her painting to be in this book. Thank you. So I'm closing with 2 poems. Indian country is a place that, if you know America and have friends, it's a safe place to go. It has the makings of a nation within itself. Ceremonies, rituals, social ceremonies. Summertime is a great place to visit America. If you're looking for social ceremonies, there are hundreds upon hundreds of powwows, they're called, where intertribal dancers go and the public is invited. They're called powwows. Don't go to the reservation by yourself. Ask before you go. Pariah songs. It was a dismembered night. I was hoping to blank out or suddenly be in Denver or Oklahoma City with my brothers. Instead, it was Milan. No honor song except the bloated moon. Another beer, alone. Remembering the killing edge of life. Every 42 years, another Cheyenne filled with genocide and rage gives it up. Another beer. I walked to a cheap hotel with seated lions from another age at the entrance, trying to sleep, hoping to close my eyes, hoping it's only sleep. For Ben Buffalo, Vietnam veteran, died outside the Veterans Hospital emergency room on the concrete, and nobody helped him. On 2nd Street, up from the bus station in Albuquerque, in the El Rey bar, I order a Budweiser. Jimmy Reed on the jukebox, and someone yells, "Hey man, you look like George Harrison." Shit. I was trying for Jim Morrison. I remove my sunglasses and he looks away like I have disappeared. I'm always disappearing. These nights are all black moths moving together in a soliloquy of blood and silence. A dark fevered wind inside us pushing us on into disappearance. Not wanting the danger, I let the drunk white woman talk on and on, wishing patience wasn't one of the bitter virtues of being a Cheyenne man. She even takes a hit off my cigar. Damn, girl, I said. I know what you Indian men like, she said. I don't even know what I like, I thought, but I didn't say that. The starlight falling through this blues bar was enough. Robert Johnson at the crossroads again. I had been there since noon, and now it was 10. Once more in the circle of lost ones, my palms aching for cedar and prayer. But I paid the cover charge here. My dead uncles paid too. They keep walking in, stepping inside the bodies of other people at the bar. I guess I'll stay. It's what we do. I have a daughter. I have a daughter in America, she's in Germany right now. She's going to be in Turkey. She just came from Portugal. She's a psychiatric nurse. No wonder she has a father like me. Anyway, she called me yesterday and said, "Pop, I'm going to Turkey for one day." I said, "Why?" She said, "I'm going with a bunch of doctors and nurses. We're going to a concert. They've hired us to watch the people if they faint. We have to give them smelling salts and stuff." Pretty good job. You can get it. So I close with a poem for my daughter. It's not a sentimental poem. She is my daughter. Turn your hand on, please. That entity is barking for Zoe. Thank you again. Yes? I saw you in a rainstorm on a deserted plain long before you were born. I saw you in the dreams I cherished before the storms nearly swept me away from myself. When you came to me, I was looking for you, not knowing when you would arrive. In a sage smoke of a dream, you arrived out of the sacred waters of life to be among us. The blessing of your life to me, one of the greatest gifts I will ever know. I will close with a poem in my native language for my fallen uncles. I'm the eldest person in my family. And none of my uncles lived beyond 55. And I'm 79, so I beat the odds a little bit. I had an uncle who became a peyote. You might ask me about that. I'll talk about it if you want. Peyote roadman and drummer and songmaker. He was in the Second World War and was captured by the Japanese. And he survived the Bataan Death March. And when he came home, he was a hero. And he died a hero at the age of 48. I had another uncle, his brother, who wasn't captured. He was a scout in the army in the Second World War. And one morning, he was given a bunch of green troops who'd never seen combat. So they said, you have to teach them how to shoot at the enemy and how to fight. So he walked them out about a mile in this jungle and said, sit down, don't move, I'll be back. He left. He didn't come back. So at dawn the next morning, the troops go back into the camp and say, well, we lost our scout. He's obviously been captured or he's killed. And the captain of the day said, you go back out and find your scout. So they went back, frightened and walking, and they came upon a ravine, and they heard someone singing. So they looked over the ravine. It was my uncle, sitting with Japanese soldiers. Their rifles all in a pile. They were drinking sake around a fire. And he'd taken his boot off, and he had a stick, and he was singing peyote songs to them. Well, the troops went back to camp and said, obviously he's been captured. About 2 hours later, he came back into the camp, smelling of sake. This is a poem I wrote for him, and it was a poem that a poetry project in New York called Poetry in the Transits put on the buses and in the underground in New York. I was in Manhattan staying with my professor friend, and a friend of his came and said, Lance, you got a poem on the subway, man. I said, what, you find it in the floor or what? He said, no, it's there, but it's in Cheyenne. So here's the poem for Charles White Antelope. Neho na menehon, idomemo. Neho na menehon, ne. Neho da se wono, na wutsta neves, adot na ut. I am singing the cold rain. I am singing the winter dawn. I am turning in the gray morning of my life toward home. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Have you questions or comments? Question, please, no comment. Yes.
This is a personal question that I ask whoever has, let's say, a minority background. Do you feel more comfortable when writing in English or in your own mother tongue? Like the Cheyenne mother tongue?
That's a very astute question. Thank you. This is a language, okay, my grandparents and my uncles told me when I was a kid, learn the enemy's way. You're in his school, public school, learn his way. I was so protected when I was a kid in school. Didn't have kindergarten then, I had first grade. So when I was in first grade, my grandmother, Bertha Cook, she wore traditional modern Cheyenne outfit I'll talk about in preface. She had a shawl with homemade moccasins, unbeaded, and made her own dress, a long dress, made of this cotton material, and a braided rope belt. And on this side of the belt, concealed by the shawl that she wore all the time, was a skinning knife. It wasn't for skinning animals. Cheyenne women were warriors. Anyway, she would ride the school bus when I was in first grade with the little yellow bus, get out of the bus, smoking Camel cigarettes, and sit in the park, sit in the playground on the merry-go-round, and wait for me. When I got out for recess, I played with her. Didn't play with the other kids. And that's the way she protected me. Just for the first few weeks, I was in first grade. So I learned the enemy's language. And this is what I'm using in my poetry. I use Cheyenne words as well to acquaint the reader and the listener to the beauty of that language. It is never shouted, it's spoken softly. I was raised to speak softly, and I do. Thank you for your question. I hope I answered it well enough. Question? Question? Okay, I'll answer. Thank you.